You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.
All right, everybody. Next up, we have Blair.
Superfan Magoo.
This man is a wonderful guy that travels around, works with youth. He has the Magoo crew, the dance troupe that is wonderful, high energy.
And always spreading love wherever he goes, man.
Yes, let's go Oilers. Let's go Oilers. I think a lot of people in Edmonton know who this next guest is, and tell us a little bit about your friend here. Who's this?
Well, this is my baby. Her name is Miss Puggy.
Miss Puggy.
She is 8 years old and understands Cree fluently.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me that your dog is more cultural than I am? I don't know Cree, so wow.
Well, in the language speaking, yes,
that
she
is
more Cree than most Cree people out there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, just understands it fluently. That's all I speak to her in.
That is amazing, and so you know full Cree.
Yeah.
So introduce yourself to the crowd and let us know who you are and where you're from and a little bit about your story growing up and you know how you come to learn Cree.
Okay, my name is Blair Gladue, also known as Mr. Magoo with the Magoo Crew Entertainment, and also known as Superfan Magoo with the Edmonton Oilers. I was born and raised in Collin Lake, Alberta. That is just 2 hours north of Edmonton. My grandparents raised me there. I was born to trap, fish, hunt, do chores, understand and speak our language. I didn't speak English until I was 5 years old, until I first started going to school.
Wow.
So Cree was
your first language?
That was my first language.
That's amazing.
And my grandparents I owe to this day. They're both gone, rest in peace. But I still think about them every day, and I owe so much gratitude and thankfulness for my wisdom and stuff now that I have nowadays. Mm-hmm. So I was born and raised in Collin Lake, but also I lived in Wabasca, Alberta, so I have family in both Collin Lake and Wabasca. When my grandparents passed away when I was a teenager, I moved back to Edmonton. That's where my mom lived. So I never lived the city life, and then I was kind of moving in with my mom was a total culture shock. Because growing up in the bush, right?
Yeah. And your mom lived in the city, yeah?
Yeah, she grew up in the city.
Wow.
And so growing up in the city here, and then my mom used to abuse me when I was young. Like I went through a lot of physical abuse, mental abuse from her, but and then I ran away from home. When I was just a teenager, I ran away from home, and I was on the streets of Edmonton, fending for myself, and I didn't turn to no drugs or alcohol, but crime and just trying to live the streets of Edmonton, you know, trying to adapt and
trying to survive.
Trying to survive, exactly. Yeah. And it was tough. It was absolutely tough, and I think about it to this day. I'm so glad to still be alive after all the stuff I went through.
When you were going through that, was there any boys programming or anything available for Indigenous men at that time? Or boys?
Nothing.
Nothing at all
There
available for...
Nothing like how they have it nowadays. Yeah, and we were just on the streets just trying to survive. So then after that, I started getting into pool. Because I was on the streets of Edmonton. One day I walked into a pool hall, and it was a 24-hour pool hall. So that was my safe place to hang out.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I picked up a cue and started playing, and then the house pros, they started teaching me the game, the proper game. So by this time, for a couple of years while I was a teenager, I just learned from all the pros.
Wow.
Yeah, and then when I was 19 years old, they sponsored me in a big tournament. So I went to a Mardi Gras Open tournament in BC. Out of 128 players from all over the world, I came 16th. I was the youngest player. I won Rookie of the Year, and you know, that set me off to start playing pool. and
Wow.
got me off the streets.
And it was a positive thing.
Positive thing.
So can you tell me how in the world, like being on the streets and that, how did you stay away from drugs and alcohol?
It was hard. It was so hard. But growing up on the reserve and seeing all the alcohol, because I lived with my grandparents, but just down the road was my friend's place, and their parents drank 7 days a week, every day. So I would see all kinds of stuff that they went through, and I seen what alcohol did to people and how it changed the way they were.
Yeah, like
one
from
day-
just one friendly
Yeah.
person and then
and
into
then all of a sudden
into
they're-
a monster.
yeah,
Yeah.
a totally different person.
Yeah.
So that right there kind of scared me to not ever drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in Edmonton, you see it everywhere. And then the drugs came out. So then the drugs came out in Edmonton.
And we're not talking
No,
pot.
No, we're not talking pot. We're talking drugs. Like
drugs.
crack, cocaine,
Yeah.
all of that stuff when it came out.
Yeah.
And I never did it, but I started hanging out with that crowd after when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I started hanging with the boys, and then I started selling. Started being on the street selling,
Surviving.
just surviving.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not proud of it, but I did it. And I can still, to this day, talk about it and say, you know, I did it for a while, and then, well, I sold it for a while, and then I straightened out. And I said, this ain't for me.
That's
Almost
amazing.
got shot, almost got busted, like all of that stuff. When you're doing that kind of stuff, it's a dangerous lifestyle.
It is.
It is.
And even like being, and it makes it double more, dangerous being indigenous. You know, like myself, I was never involved with that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I definitely almost lost my life, because of drinking. Because I used to party. I used to drink. I used to smoke pot. I used to do all those things. And, I got stabbed 5 times at a party. I almost lost my life in Regina. And it was to bury my uncle, who was murdered, at a party. And what did we do as young cousins at that time, because we were so lost with our thinking and had no connection to our ceremonies and that we're gonna drink in our uncle's honor, which was, now we know, which was completely a disrespectful thing to do. And I think that's kind of why that stuff happened to me. But I got stabbed 5 times at a party that night, and I almost lost my life. And I was never involved in gangs or anything. It was just because I had the bottle in my hand and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the reason why that happened is because a girl got stabbed, and I was trying to defend her, and I ended up getting stabbed. So very, 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 it's really hard to grow up as an indigenous young person, through the party scene and through the drug scene. And it's just amazing to see that we're both still alive.
That's right. That's
Right?
exactly right. And
We're here, we're sober, we're doing things that are for the community now,
And like they say, everything's meant for a reason.
Exactly.
If we didn't go through all this stuff when we were younger, none of this stuff would be happening right now. We wouldn't be where we are today.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
Just being here today, talking with you and getting to share our stories is absolutely beautiful.
I think it's time for Indigenous men to have a space to have these stories, and to let the young ones out there know that might be on drugs, that might be on the streets, that might be lost right now, that you can turn into something else, that every second of your life, every second is a chance to change it, right?
That's right.
Like if you have blood running through your veins, you can change your life, And that's what we're here to express, and we're here to have that safe space. So tell me about, how you got into the Magoo crew, and, tell us about your experience with your stage presence and this man does many, 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 many things. like with that microphone, and it's just, you know, and beyond. So it's just amazing, you know, to see what you've done, you know, as well. I mean, we all go through our hard growing up and our moments, but it makes us who we are as adults, I think, you know.
Yeah, so I played pool for the first few years of my teenage life, and then in my 20s, I was still playing pool, and then I was still traveling all across Canada. I had a manager, pool manager, that would set up all these matches, and that was my money making. That was what I was doing. Then in my early 20s, I started learning how to breakdance. All of a sudden, like just out of the blue, I seen these guys breakdancing, and I was like, man, I want to learn how to do this. So I got 5 different guys, different nationalities, 5 guys that taught me certain moves. And I learned those moves. I danced 7 days a week. That's all I did. I stopped playing pool and just started dancing.
Wow.
And then next thing you know, I was dancing, and I was going to dances everywhere. And then I'd throw my own moves in that I practiced and taught myself doing. And then I would go to dances and just rip people up on the dance floor. And then next thing you know, when I was 23 years old, I got a nickname. This group just gave me at a dance one time. They said, hey, we're going to call you Mr. Magoo. And I'm like, what? Mr. Magoo? And I was like, oh, okay. So then right after that, the whole group started calling me Mr. Magoo, and we'd go to dances and whatever. And then next thing you know, people would come up to me and be like, hey, what's your name? I'd be like, Mr. Magoo. And then it carried on from there. And then I was like, you know, I'm Mr. Magoo. I want to get a group together. I want to get a breakdance group together and travel all over performing, dancing, because this is my passion. This is what I love doing now. So then
That's amazing.
I got a group together. I got the best dancers together, and I said, I'm Mr. Magoo. This is my crew. I'm going to call it Magoo Crew. And then from there, that's how the Magoo Crew started, and just breakdance. For the first 10, 15 years, all we did was breakdance. And then we stopped dancing. And then for a few years, we stopped the Magoo Crew. And then just a few years ago, back in 2016, we started the Magoo Crew again. And this was because of my wife. We were together for a couple of years. We've been together for 9 years now. But for the first couple of years, she's like, after the couple of years we were together, she's like, why don't you start up the Magoo Crew again? And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, why don't you start up the Magoo Crew again? Because I used to see you guys dance back in the day, and everybody looked up to you guys, and, you know, you should start the Magoo Crew again. So I thought to myself, and then I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. But this time, we're not just going to break dance. And this time, we're not just going to go out there and just dance. I'm going to put together a group, an entertainment group with all kinds of indigenous entertainment, hip-hop, modern, all of that stuff, and put it together. And I'm going to call it the Magoo Crew Entertainment. And we're going to go around spreading positive messages. And now we do. And we have hoop dancing, traditional dancing, jigging, break dancing, singing, comedy, and motivational talks on bullying and suicide awareness.
That's beautiful.
And that is the Magoo Crew Entertainment, and that's how we got started, and to where we are nowadays. And every community needs that. And
Yeah.
we travel everywhere. Like, we're constantly in different communities, spreading the love, respect, and talking about bullying, suicide awareness. Not only that, we're talking about our culture, and the most important thing in our show is we talk about the elders. The elders. The reason why we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the elders, and they need to get the respect that they used to, because the elders don't get as much respect as they used to back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And we need to spread that message. And
That's beautiful. That is beautiful, man. Like, and you know, you're inspiring and bringing so many, you know, different genres around, and, you know, inspiring the communities that you go to maybe dance and maybe perform, or maybe, you know, try something with, you know, entertainment, or talking on that mic even, you know, and that's amazing. That's really amazing. You know, I went to Stanley Mission. I don't know if you've been there
we've
before.
been there. Yeah.
Beautiful place, and it was quite a while ago. And You know, it was probably about, I'm gonna say 15 years ago that I went there, and there wasn't much with drumming there, you know? And I brought my drum and I said, guys, I'm learning. I don't know any, I'm not a professional powwow drummer. Like, I'm just learning too, but I have this drum here and I'm gonna sing you a song, you know? And then the next, like, they invited me the next year and there was a few kids with drums now, you know? And it was like, it just spread it out more and more and more. And it's just, you know, it's amazing to get the chance to be able to do that, you know what I mean? And what you're doing is so important. And, you know, it's more than just, you know, I believe when we go to these communities, it really has nothing to do with fame or how many likes you get on your posts or any of those things. It has to do with inspiring that community and bringing people together through the arts. And I think that you're definitely doing that.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to have you on this podcast. And, you know, if there was anybody that was a deadly uncle, it would be Mr. McCrew, Mr. Magoo.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, so when you went to that community and you did that, you inspired and motivated right there just from you talking about your story and saying, you know, I'm just learning, but here I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And those boys, yeah, that's, so when we go to communities and we perform, if we can go out there and perform for the youth, and there's 100 youth there, we can't change overnight, but if we can change one youth out there, that makes a totally big difference. And there's so many youth and adults going through this nowadays, where they are being bullied in school, online, in their workplace, and so many have taken their lives.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to see, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
Everybody should be treated equal. Everybody should be respected and loved, no matter who you are, where you come from. And we need more love in this world. And you know, this would be a better place if everybody spread love instead of negativity.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree. And you know, that's why we're trying to, you know, have this podcast for us to be able to celebrate the positivity of us. And we had our first promo come out today with our first group of men, and our idea was to get all of us laughing and smiling, because, you know, if you look at the history of Hollywood, it's all natives with straight faces, looking aggressive, looking mean, but that's not really who we are. When we get together, we're laughing way more than we're looking serious and stuff, right? So we want to, you know, show that, you know, that's just a one-sided track narrative, you know, with Hollywood, and that we're actually smiling people, you know, that we love what we do, you know, and we're lucky, and we're, you know, even when we had territories, we didn't own those pieces of land. We took care of that land. Hopefully that land would take care of us. That was our motto, right? Like, so, yeah, it's just amazing. And so, tell me a little bit about your outfit here with the dog. Obviously, you know, tell me about how you got involved with the Edmonton Oilers. When did that all start for you? Like,
well, growing up, I was always an Oilers fan. Like, from my household, growing up as a kid, watching black and white TV, watching the Oilers, and then I was just a little
Gretzky,
guy.
eh?
Yeah, I was just a little guy in the 80s.
Yeah.
In the 80s. And all I had was a little t-shirt. When the Oilers won the cup, I was on 118 Ave, standing on the corner with just a little tiny flag in my Oilers shirt. And man, that right there, watching the Stanley Cup drive by, watching the Oilers drive by, and all the fans pumped me up and even jacked me up even more. So then when I got older in 2006, I was always a crazy fan, but in 2006 I was on Gretzky Drive right outside the Coliseum there. That's what they called it, the Coliseum, the old building. On the street with big flag, jersey, and painted up, and all of a sudden, 2006, I got the nickname Superfan Magoo from the papers. And that's how the Superfan Magoo started. And after that, I was always decked out, painted up, had my own drum, pumping it up. And there was always also Crazy Dan, and that was the guy that would bang the drum at the old Coliseum, right?
Yeah.
He passed away, rest in peace, man, but he was awesome, man. And that also pumped me up and motivated me to also be who I am today. And
Yeah.
Oiler fans out there, man, when you're an Oiler fan, come to playoffs. It don't matter who you are. It don't matter the color of your skin or
Yeah.
anything, man. You're family.
Mhm.
When you're an Oiler fan, you are family. And I get so much love from everybody out there, man. And they just say, keep doing what you're doing. So nowadays, now, I'm doing work with the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm the super fan Magoo, and man, I have my own drum, my own outfits, and I'm always at the game pumping it up, passionate,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about. And this here, right here, this is the super fan pug, Miss Puggy. She's straight super fan it up. And
That's beautiful.
medallions, I get so many
That's
medallions
huge.
beaded.
Wow.
This is huge and made by Joanne Pasquiak. She's from Saddle Lake, Alberta, great beater. She's done
Wow.
a few beads for me, and I have my own Let's Go Oilers super fan shirt. The Oilers actually sent me this jacket to my house. They sent
Wow.
me different kind of stuff, and
That's amazing.
every day I'm wearing Oilers, man.
And I want to say thank you too for the gift here.
Oh, yes.
We'll be getting podcast hats made, and we'll be sending them to all our guests. So
Nice.
we'll definitely send you one when we get that. That's amazing. Like it really goes to show you that also sports, entertainment, arts, all those things, doesn't really have a color.
Nope.
When you're on that stage or when you're together in that crowd. There's no really color that makes you different because you're all together, like you said, as family. And that's amazing, man. That is totally amazing, And so what do you got planned next? Where are you going to be next for the Magoo crew? You must be getting pumped up now that the season and everything, man.
So I'm at the Oiler games as much as I can whenever we're in town. But when we're not in town, we're traveling with the Magoo crew, and we're heading to Saskatchewan here tomorrow, actually, and then we'll be there. Then I'll be back Monday for the Oiler game, and then after that we're in Saddle Lake, Alberta for Wednesday, and then we're in Manitoba and going to Ontario for the Magoo crew. And we'll just keep going and going, man.
Man, I'm so lucky to have you in here today. And I just got one last thing that I want to talk to you about or bring up is, as I'm traveling around, I started to do a documentary, and it's inspired a new documentary, and it's based on Indigenous people having a safe space to pray, almost like pond makers, but without the treatment center. Inside of our city limits, every major city, I think, deserves a space for Indigenous people to have their ceremonies, to have their sweats, to have an inside space, to have a kitchen, just exactly like palm makers, but without the treatment center, without being in treatment. I think it's time for even us as Indigenous people to get out of the mentality thinking we need to go out into our land, because this is our land.
That's right.
Right here in Edmonton, right there in Calgary, right there in Toronto, right there in Vancouver. We need a space for Indigenous people to pray. What do you think?
That is absolutely amazing, and every city and community you bring this up to, I guarantee it's gonna go off.
I think
off
it
the
started.
charts, man. It started.
I think it started.
And seeing us Indigenous people are rising, and people are now knowing, who we are, what we're all about,
Mm-hmm.
and this will always be our land, brother.
Mhm.
Always be our land, and
Mhm.
we'll protect it always like we do.
Exactly.
And like you were talking about earlier, laughter, as Indigenous people, man, laughter is medicine. And Don Burnstick, man, he's out there traveling the world, man, and doing his laughter as medicine and healing our people as well.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, man. So
It's
he's
important, yeah.
I've learned a lot from that guy as well,
Mm-hmm.
and learned a lot from everybody.
There's a lot of mentors out there, Indigenous mentors.
You're one of them.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. And, and even like on this show here, we're even celebrating just normal dads, like people that aren't in the limelight in any sort of way, just regular dads as well. So, because it's important to celebrate them as well. As we see our women getting into circles and healing themselves. We're as Indigenous men, the hardest thing is how do we get a bunch of Indigenous men together in the same room? It seems like for Indigenous women, they have the skirt making, the ribbon skirts, the talking stick circles, and so now this is just the start of an idea of how we bring our Indigenous men together through a podcast, safely at home. They can join, they can watch, they can find out about where you're going to be. There's men's programs here that I found out that are put on by programs here in Edmonton. We have a guest on that's talking about that. So, we're trying to shed light on these programs that weren't there before, and if they were there, we're trying to expose them. So, thank you so much for being on the show today, man. You are inspiration. You and your wife that are doing wonderful things in the community as well as a team, and apart, and just continue doing what you're doing. Everybody is definitely watching and cheering you on, and thank you for bringing the guest in. What a good guest. You didn't even make hardly any noise, buddy.
No, she won't, and she won't get off me or move until, if I ask her to. That's it.
Wow. And you have to ask her in Cree.
Yeah. Dito Bambatay, ba? Yeah, she does. I asked her if she wanted to go run around. She said, yeah.
Yes. Awesome.
No? Thank you for having me, and
for sure.
not only is me and my wife doing stuff, but you and your wife.
Thank you.
Joanna, my cousin Joanna, she's absolutely amazing too. And Lance Cardinal.
Yes, I'm going to try to have him on as well. That's what I was going to mention to you.
We grew up side by side, right next door.
You need a drum, like my drum and his drum.
Yeah.
The heartbeat drum with the Edmonton Oilers right in the middle. Imagine the heartbeat drum with the logo right in the middle of the heart. You know what I mean?
That's what we need. We gotta get that drum made before
for real.
Throughout the season.
Walter White, Wally White, Wally White. Yes, he's the man who makes those.
If you're watching this, Walter White, Wally White.
Yeah.
Hear that? I need a heartbeat drum with the Turtle Island logo, Oilers logo in the middle. And Superfan Magoo will be pumping it up at the game.
It'd be like, I'm the heartbeat of the Edmonton Oilers with the heart. With the heart.
What a great idea. That's happening, man.
Boom.
It's already happening.
Dude, for real.
Woo!
Yeah.
Man.
Have a good one, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. Ixamaga.
You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for Deadly Uncle conversations.